Hello, everyone. So I know I haven't done a Fortnite video in a while, but I was looking back at my old trap videos. None of the information is outdated in any of those videos, really. The noob trap guide is still extremely accurate. The how to use each trap video is almost completely accurate. So they don't really need to be updated, but the quality of those videos is not great. One of them is ultra wide, which is an immediate turn away for people, and my microphone quality is horrifically bad in those, and you can hear the quality difference in this one. But yeah, so this video is just gonna go over the absolute basics and examples of every trap in the game. Now, later in the video, I'm gonna go over three example core defenses, very basic core defenses for retrieve the data, ride the lightning, and fight the storm or Atlas missions. And I'm not gonna go over evac or repair the shelter because they are literally just huge boxes with wall darts on them. That's really just it for evac and repair the shelter. I can't really explain it other than that. It's just a simple box with a bunch of wall darts on it. That's and some anti-airs. That's basically evac and repair the shelter. So after I finish going over all the traps, there will be little simple guides at the end of the video. Right off the bat, I'm going to tell you the one trap you should just completely ignore, pretend like it doesn't exist, and just do not invest any time into it. And that is the flame grill. The flame grill is the worst trap in Save the World. It has no practical use whatsoever. You cannot do any real damage to any husk at all with this trap unless they're lower level or they are half dead already. We really, we really tried to give this trap the benefit of the doubt with the best possible circumstances, and it just cannot do anything. It is the worst trap in Save the World. Do not invest any time into this trap at all. Just put it somewhere else. Just ignore it. Recycle every copy of this. Put it in the collection book. I don't know. Level up one as a joke, but don't use this trap. It's bad. All right, so the first set of traps we're going to go through are the roof traps in the game. So as you can see right here, there's 4 different roof traps to pick from. They all have very specific uses, and right off the bat, we're going to go over the most basic one to understand. The ceiling zapper right here, it is a very basic trap. It only has a 1 tile range down, so it doesn't spread. You can't place it more than 1 tile high. And this trap has one specific use, and that is to destroy heavy targets with 1 hit. This trap is single target. It does not hit multiple enemies, and your main primary use for this trap is at the very end of tunnels. If you happen to have a smasher come through, and this thing will do a ton of damage to it. It can be energy or nature, so you can get 2 copies and appropriately make it for each mission. But this trap is very situational. It's not bad. Contrary to what people think, this trap is not bad at all. It is a monster of a single target trap, but that's it. It's a single target trap. It's not going to damage multiple enemies, and you really only are going to use it in very specific situations. All right, our next roof trap is going to be pretty simple to understand. It is the ceiling gas trap. So the ceiling gas trap is 1 tile. It cannot go higher than this 1 tile right here, or it will not do damage to anything. The way this trap works is whenever an enemy is standing directly under it, it's going to take a boatload of physical damage, which is a lot. This trap is really good to put on low roofs and tunnels with broadsides or wall darts or whatever, because it just does a bunch of damage. It's pretty simple to understand. Back in the day, this trap used to deal affliction damage. It does not anymore. It has not been like that for like 5 years at this point. So yeah, it's a really easy trap to understand. You just put it in the roofs of tunnels. So you see you have a tunnel like this. You just put it there. You put it there, and it just works. It's pretty easy to understand. It's not complicated, and it has a pretty wide range of use that you could put it anywhere. So our next trap we're going to go over is the ceiling electric field. This trap is pretty easy to understand. It's basically a mindless trap. You just spam it everywhere. But the ceiling electric field, it works from a maximum of 2 tiles high, and it has a very special feature that not a lot of other traps have. So I'm going to go up here, and I'm going to place it right here just for a more visual example. But it has a maximum of 2 tiles high, and you can put it like this. And the way ceiling electric fields work is they go in a 3 tile radius around them. So from here where I'm standing to this tile, this tile, this tile, this tile, this tile, this one, and this one. Everything in this 3x3 tile radius under this trap will get hit by it. It will trigger it and will get hit by the ceiling electric field. And it is a really easy trap to use. It's a little expensive if you don't have the materials to spam, but this thing is a mindless trap. You just spam it over open fields. If you're in a mission with Death Bomb, all you do is just spam this over the spawns and it handles the husk really easily. This is a mindless trap to use. It does not take any brain power or really skill to understand how it works. But yeah, it's really easy to use and it can be nature and energy, so you can appropriately change it for the mission to do extra damage. All right, so the next roof trap we're going to go over is going to be a little more complicated to understand, but it's pretty easy once you get the hang of it. And that is the ceiling drop trap, or we call them tire traps. Tire traps is a more fitting name. So the way these things work is they have a maximum of 3 tiles, and 3 tiles is what you want to place them at. 1 tile, if you place them like this at 1 tile, they'll do nothing. They are practically useless. If you place them at 2 tile, they'll be pretty effective, but if you place them at 3 tiles, they will be extremely effective. So the way this trap works is it drops a bunch of tires down on enemies and knocks them back, which is really important to remember. The knockback is insane on ceiling drop traps. So the way you take advantage of this is when you go, I'm going to make this a little easier for me so I don't have to double jump. But when you go to place a ceiling electric field, you see the tank right there on the left side. You see the tank, a little clear invisible tank on the left side above my back bling. So that is what you want to follow when you place these things. So when you place a ceiling electric field, wherever this tank is facing right here, this tank right here, wherever that is facing, so you see this is facing this way, that is where the husks are going to get blasted back. So whenever the husks get hit by the tire trap, they're going to get staggered and they're going to roll back to wherever this gas tank is facing. So the way you take advantage of this is you pretend like you're a husk. When you go to place the ceiling drop trap into a defense, you pretend like you're a husk and you walk forward towards your defense with all the gas tanks facing outwards towards the spawns. So pretend like I'm a husk walking in and the gas tank is facing that way. And if I get hit by those tires, I'm going to get bounced backwards. So you can use ceiling drop traps to stagger enemies away from your defense, and it's incredibly effective. You've probably seen some Frostnite runs, especially from Beast, especially if I'm involved, because I really love that build, where I just spam tire traps. That's all I do. I just spam 3 tile high tire traps, and it never fails. It is a Frostnite 128 monster of a build because it just never fails. However, your FPS will probably go down a lot if you have a lot of these things, but it is incredibly effective. And that's basically it. You just have to make sure the gas tank is facing outwards towards the defense. So when the husks get hit by it, they go outward. So if this was inverted and, like, say a van was right there or an Atlas was right there, if this gas tank was facing that way, if they got hit by the tires, they'd get closer to the objective, which is not what you want. So you want this gas tank to be facing outward. And that is tire traps. That is the basic understanding of tire traps. And it's really effective if you do this. If you put tire traps above a slope, then they'll really roll down and go further. But yeah, that's tire traps. Really easy to understand. One of the best traps, if not the best, slightly overpowered trap in the entire game. But yeah, tire traps. All right, so the next set of traps we're going to go over is the floor traps. And you can see there's a lot of different options for floor traps. However, not all of them are incredibly useful. Some of them are more useful than the other. So we're going to go off really basic ones. Cozy Campfire. It does exactly what you think it does. It's the same thing as BR. It heals you, your teammates, and your defenders. That's all it does. It's not that crazy healing, even cranked out to 144 like mine. It's not that incredible. But yeah, Cozy Campfires. Extremely easy to understand. They do the same thing as they do in BR. But yeah. The next simple trap I'm going to go over in the same category as the Cozy Campfire is the Healing Pad. The Healing Pad is an incredible trap for yourself and your teammates. So the healing pad, just you walk over it when you're missing health and it heals you. And it does a lot of healing. It's incredibly useful if you're using Blast from the Past, because if you're in the millions of health with Blast from the Past, a campfire is going to do nothing for your health. But these things will absolutely bring your health right back up, and you can get right back in the fight with these things. They're really easy to understand. You can place them anywhere, place them on like key points in your defense so your teammates can run up and heal. But yeah, healing pads and cozy campfires. Very, very basic traps to understand. All right, the next pretty simple to understand trap we're going to go over is the anti-air. So the anti-air does basically what it says in the name. It destroys things that come out the air, aka lobbers. If a lobber is throwing stuff at your base, you just put these maybe on every four corner, maybe you spread them out evenly. They will completely nullify lobbers if you have them placed accordingly and enough of them. They are just that simple. There's another fun thing you can do with these. If you are dealing with annoying amounts of propane husk, put these on the floor around your defense and they will destroy the propanes if they are thrown. So you can save your entire defense from waves or propanes just by putting a row of these in front of your defense, or putting them spread out evenly on the ground around your defense, because these things destroy propanes. Now, I know you're going to be like, what about flingers? Unfortunately, even with damage perks, even fully speccing into the most damage you can with anti-airs, these things are practically useless against the husk that flingers throw. So we're just going to ignore flingers in this conversation because this thing is practically useless against flingers. But yes, if you're having lobber problems or you're having propane problems, this is your trap. It's incredibly cheap to craft and very easy to understand. For perks, I'm not going to go over perks for all of these because they all have situations, but anti-air, this is the best perk loadout you can get for anti-airs. There's nothing really else you can do to make your anti-airs better than range reload durability, and this is preference. I just like to have my builds healed with this perk right here. But yeah, super easy to understand. Perks are standard on this. You never change the perks on this. But yeah, let's get into the next trap. All right, so our next floor trap we're going to go over is another very simple one. It is wooden floor spikes right here. So the way wooden floor spikes work is it's very simple. These are actually really useful. So the way these things work is they snare enemies for 6 seconds, and that applies the snare effect to them. So if you have anything that increases damage to snared enemies, this will boost the damage with those weapons. But all it does is it does constant tick damage whenever they're walking over, and it snares them for 6 seconds after they walk off of it. So you can really take advantage of these by spacing them out evenly. If you have one here, it'll get snared for 6 seconds. It'll take a little bit to walk over this tile, and it'll go over another one, get snared for 6 seconds, and you can just repeat the process, every other tile having a wooden floor spike, and then the husker just going to be permaslowed, and they won't really have a way out of that permaslow. So yeah, wooden floor spikes, ridiculously easy to understand. They're not that complicated. They're one of the most basic traps in the entire game. And yeah. All right, so the next floor trap we're going to go over is the retractable floor spikes. Now, this is a very situational trap. It's like the ceiling zapper where it does a lot of damage, but it's very slow, and there are better options for floor traps. Now, you could put this thing at the very entrance of a tunnel or the very end of a tunnel. However, there is a better floor trap for the end of tunnels. So this thing might be reserved if you are really, really wanting to output a ridiculous amount of single target damage at the very beginning of your tunnel. It's not that crazy. It's very slow. And it's very situational, and I'm not going to recommend you fully invest into this thing. It's not useless, not at all. It's not terrible, but it's very situational, and you really only want to use this at the very beginning of tunnels if you want to do a bunch of damage to enemies walking in, because it's very slow and you have way better options for floor traps. All right, so the next trap we're going to go over is the floor launcher. Now, this is a very funny trap because it sends enemies up in the air. So the way this thing works is it just, when a husk jumps on it, it sends them up in the air. It does not work on smashers. Smashers are completely immune to this. It will stagger them, but it won't send them up in the air. It used to, not anymore. Epic Epic didn't like us doing that because it kind of made Smashers a little bit of a joke. But yeah, floor launchers, they're very easy to understand. They send enemies upward, and the way you want to take advantage of these is you want to do 2 tiles high, at least 2 tiles high, and either a edited cone or a stair. And whenever enemies bounce on this, they will hit that and go flying backwards, depending on how much knockback perks you have on this. And that is their real use. You really just use them like this to send enemies flying backwards. Maybe there's a death pit right here that you're trying to fling them into, and wall launchers aren't doing the job. But yeah, you just put them on the ground, put a roof above them, put an edited roof above them, and they will go flying backwards. And that is floor traps. Very, very easy to understand. All right, so the next trap is one of the most easy to understand traps in the entire game. It is a tar pit. All it does is stop enemies in their tracks. That's all it does. When an enemy walks on it, it will be stuck for a short amount of time. I think it shows you the time on the card for tar pits. Yeah, it just says for a short time. But yeah, when the enemies get stuck in the tar pit, they can't move, they can't go anywhere, and they take a little bit more damage. I don't remember the exact percentage, but yeah, so these are incredibly useful, especially at the very inner part of your defense where you are one wall away from the husk touching your objective. All you have to do is spam these around the inner floor near your objective. Like if you're on a van mission and the van's right behind this wall right here, you just want to put tar pits all around the van, and whenever a smasher charges, it'll get stuck in place and won't destroy your wall. Most of the time, it won't destroy your wall. Sometimes the game gives you a bit of a middle finger and lets the smasher get a little too close and it does damage to the wall. But most of the time, you're going to be in the good with tar pits. You can't go wrong with these things. These are incredible, incredible traps, and I highly recommend getting one if you want. Also, the perks on tar pits are completely standard. They are never changed. It's just all durability, and you can buff the fire damage if you want. I don't really do it that much because I don't use it for damage. It's not a damage trap, and it's a waste of perk up to do that. But yeah, all durability, standard perks on tar pits. You're never gonna change them. All right, I saved the most complicated floor trap in the game for last on this section of the video. Now, floor freezes. They are very weird and complicated, but incredibly powerful if you know how to use them. So the basics of these things, when a husk walks on it, it gets frozen in place. They also take 20% extra damage for the entire time they're frozen on the floor freeze. And that's it. That's basically how it works. And when they get thawed out, they bounce backwards. Now, the thing with floor freezes is it's the same situation as ceiling drop traps, where wherever this one on the right, wherever the right CO2 tank is, whenever the husks thaw out, they will go backwards on this right here. They will go backwards on wherever this tank is facing. That's the easiest way I can teach people how to use floor freezes. It's the same thing you do when you play ceiling drop traps, where you pretend like you're a husk walking forward and you place them like that. So I'm walking into a tunnel, I'm a husk, I'm placing the traps like this, where my objective is over there and the spawns are over there. So whenever they thaw out, they just get bounced backwards. And a question a lot of people have about floor freezes is, what do these perks do? Do they matter? Do they have any impact? Yes, they do. Impact and knockback perks actually increase the range they bounce back when they unthaw. And that's about it. It's not really anything else, and it's not incredibly noticeable unless you get a bunch of them. But yeah, floor freeze traps, incredibly useful if you use them correctly. And if you pair them with ceiling drop traps, you can essentially stun lock missions. It is kind of ridiculous how overpowered floor freeze ceiling drop trap combos are, because it's just enemies cannot get past your defense if you have that combo set up. It's incredibly ridiculous, and I wish more people knew that if you took advantage of that trap combo, the missions become a joke. But yeah, that's floor freezes. Place the right facing tank facing the spawns so they bounce backwards like this, back to where they spawned. All right, our next category is wall traps. So you can see all of them here. So I'm going to go over the easiest to understand first, wall spikes. Now, wall spikes, they don't really do that much damage. Now, if you really spec the perks into it, you can maybe crank a little damage out of these things, but the real use of wall spikes is that special final perk on it where you can have it heal your builds that's attached to, or you can have it increase your build health. So a prime example people like to use wall spikes for is, you see this one right here, I have heals attached. I take this and pretend like there is a van behind this wall. So I'm placing my normal traps there. I put my normal wall dart there. If I go on this side where the van is right here, the van doesn't actually block placing traps. So you can place this wall spike right here that heals your builds, and you can have it constantly healing your builds over time while you have your normal damage trap here. And it's incredibly useful. Wall spikes, not really for damage, more for utility on those last perks right there. So really, if you're going to get into wall spikes, I would recommend only leveling up the final perk on them, not really into the other perks unless you really want to try to crank some damage out of these things. But yeah, wall spikes, incredibly simple to understand and very good utilities. All right, our next wall trap we're going to go over is another pretty basic one to understand. Wall dynamos, or if you have the Machinist Mina pack, they're Zap-O-Maxes. They are the exact same trap. Zap-O-Maxes, wall dynamos, it's just a skin of the wall dynamo. Exactly the same. There's no differences between them at all, other than looks. So wall dynamos are very special in the sense that they can be placed on short walls and medium walls. They can be placed like this and like this. They can also be placed on full walls too, obviously, but that means you can put them on a short wall like this and then put another trap behind to deal damage. And it's very nice to just have these things maybe strewn about your defenses, because if you put them on the little mini walls right here, you can have wall darts or broadsides just fire over them and get the damage out of this and still get the damage out of the back trap right there. But yeah, very, very easy to understand wall dynamos. They are incredibly basic and very niche, but actually pretty good. Also, they can be nature or energy, depending on how you want to perk them. If you're in a water mission, use nature. If you're in literally any other mission, use energy. But yeah, wall dynamos, very, very basic to understand. All right, our next pretty basic trap is going to be wall launchers. So they do the same thing as floor launchers. They hit an enemy back and they go flying backwards, depending on how many impact and knockback perks you have on it. But yeah, very, very basic, very simple to understand. Husk walks in front of it. They get hit backwards. However many knockback perks you have on it, the farther they'll go. And yeah. Also, smashers, again, they won't get knocked back. They will get staggered, though, because it does break their knockback threshold, but it doesn't send them flying because they are hard-coded to not get moved by the wall launchers. It still staggers them, though, so you can use this thing to stagger them. All right, our next wall trap is going to be wall lights. This is another kind of situational trap. So the way they work, when an enemy walks in front of it, they just get stunned. The lights flash and they get stunned immediately in place and they can't move around or really do anything. They're super easy to understand. They're very situational though, unless you have like a crazy high damage pit, or you're sending enemies into a big box with a bunch of damage traps on the walls and roofs and floor. You're really not going to have another use for these things other than maybe stun locking Husk in place. If you have mismatch reload speed on two different wall lights, so this one has like faster reload and pretend there's one right here that has slower reload, you can stun lock Husk permanently. However, the despawn timer will kick in and those husks will just disappear anyway, so there's no point in stun locking them. That used to be, back in the day, that used to be a jailing tactic, was stun locking husk in place with two different reload speed wall lights or sound walls, but that is long ago, long time ago, at least 4 years ago at this point, where that doesn't work anymore. But wall lights, they just stun enemies that walk in front of them. Very basic, very easy to understand. All right, our next trap is going to be sound walls. Sound walls are very special. They're like wall lights where they hit the husks as they're walking by and they basically neuter them. They are stuck in a dancing animation and they can't damage anything until that dancing animation stops. And you can increase that dancing animation with the effect duration perk on these traps right here. And the special thing about these is they disarm propanes. So if a propane husk gets hit by a sound wall, it will drop its propane tank and it cuts off their ability to blow up your base once they drop their propane tanks. And that is one of the primary uses of these things, is to kind of put them near the beginning of spawns where you know you're going to get a lot of propanes. And if the propane walks past it, it's going to drop its propane tank and won't explode or destroy your base. But yeah, the sound wall's not that crazy complicated. They basically just neuter husk for a couple seconds and disarm propane tanks. All right, I saved the 2 best wall traps in the game for last. The first one I'm going to go over is wall darts, because broadsides are going to get a big conversation when I get into those. But wall darts, they're this. They shoot out darts that go 3 tiles out. So from that tile right there to here, it will damage anything that's standing on this tile, but nothing farther out, which is why these things are incredibly useful, because the darts they shoot out can go over small walls, they can go through windows, they can go through arches, they can go through open doors. And since they can go through all those edits right there, that means you can do combo builds with these things. Say you want really high damage being put out and you also want to disarm the husk walking through, you can put a wall dart here, and you can put a sound wall here, and the sound wall will go off and the wall dart will go through that hole right there and hit anything that walks past it. It's incredibly useful. Wall darts are one of the best traps in the entire game, and a special little quirk with them is they can shoot through stairs and they can shoot through roofs. No matter how you edit the roof, it can still go through it. So you can have it like that, or you can have it like that, or like this, or even like this, it can still go through it. And that is a special feature very unique to wall darts, is that they can go through stairs and roofs. But yeah, wall darts are insanely useful and one of the best traps in the entire game, mostly for the fact that you can put them behind other traps and still have them do the crazy damage because they go 3 tiles out. You can do a weird combo deal if you want to, where you have like a sound wall here and like a wall dynamo here, and maybe, I don't know, a trap on the other side that does damage here. Wall darts are incredibly versatile and very, very, very useful, and I highly recommend investing in wall darts if you haven't already. These things are insanely powerful and are the key to beating some of the hardest content in the game. All right, I saved the most difficult to learn for some reason wall trap in the entire game, broadsides. Now, these fancy looking traps, people love them. People spam these in missions because they look all fancy and crazy and they have the cool sounds and they shoot out the cool cannonballs. But the biggest thing people fail to realize about broadsides is they need a wall to bounce off of. So if these cannonballs shoot out, they're going to go out into nothing and do no damage at all to the enemies. However, if you put a wall directly in front of it, or at least 2 tiles between them, they will bounce. And when they bounce, they will continue to do their full entire damage until the cannonballs expire and despawn. And if you combo them like this, say I put a wall right here and another one, if you combo them like this where they're facing into each other, you can create melters. You can have very slim 1-tile tunnels like this, where there's just walls on each side, filled with broadsides, and nothing will get through. Nothing will get through on that, because broadsides are insanely powerful. And if you use them correctly like this, where they have a wall to bounce off of, rather than going off into open air, they will destroy anything that walks through them. Broadsides are one of the best traps in the entire game if you use them correctly. And that's basically it. Broadsides are very dumb, very easy to understand if you know that they need a wall to bounce off of. And that's it for broadsides. Place a wall in front of them or another tile ahead of them, 2 tiles in between them. They will bounce and they will do incredible amounts of damage. And that's it. That's broadsides. Incredibly easy to understand. And I wish more people, I wish the game itself, I wish Epic would add some kind of pop-up tutorial when you get broadsides telling you, hey, these things got to have a wall in front of the bouncer. They're not going to do anything. Because I'm sure people watching this video have gone to the pub missions and they just see people lining up the walls of defenses with broadsides leading into nothing. And you just watch in awe as they do absolutely nothing to the husk. So yeah, place a wall in front of them. Let them bounce. They need to bounce or they will not do any damage at all. Okay, we are going to go over a perfect example of an excellent Atlas build you can do for high-level missions like the 160s or 140s. So right off the bat, we're going to take advantage of all of these different traps right here. So we're going to go over to the Atlas right here. I did the basic defense where I just put a cone over it. Right off the bat, I'm going to build arches like this. and then I'm going to cover the roof. Just cover the roof like this. And then I'm going to take my anti-airs and I'm going to place 1, 2, 3, 4 on each defense like this, where it's perfectly even. And then I'm going to come over here, back down here. I'm going to go off arches, put normal walls right here on each corner like this. So this is our frame. We have arches right here, then a full roof, and then we have walls on each of these corners right here. And then we have our anti-airs up here placed on each corner. Very easy to understand. So you might be wondering, what in the world are these walls for? Well, they're actually for your wall darts. You put your wall darts right here, and whenever an enemy walks up to the wall dart's height, they will get hit and they will take a lot of damage. I mean, a lot of damage. And right here in the center, you might be wondering what this is for. This is for your ceiling gas trap. You put a ceiling gas trap right there, and then you put a floor freeze, or you put a tar pit. It's choice. I like to put floor freezes. Put a floor freeze right there. And on each corner of your atlas, you put a floor freeze with the tank facing outward like that. The right tank facing outward. So when they thaw out, they go backwards. And then over here, put another one and another one. And then that is a really good defense as it is. However, we can make it even more ridiculously powerful if we take our ceiling drop traps and place them in the right position where the tank is facing outwards towards the defense. They will get frozen here, or hit by the ceiling drop traps, or both. It doesn't really matter. They're not going to make it up here. And then you put the rest of them on here, and now nothing is really going to be able to get up to the top unless it's a tank, like a smasher or something. But we have a solution for the little annoying husk that might make it up there. We put a ceiling electric field on each corner right here. So now it's fully decked out in traps. It is almost indestructible. It is perfect for 160s. However, if you want to make it even more smasher proof, then you put tar pits around the entire base of the atlas. I did not build over here, so we're gonna improvise, and I forgot to make enough tar pits, so let me make those real quick. All right, so now we have the entire atlas surrounded by tar pits. Now, realistically speaking, you'd only really want to put the tar pits on the direction that the husks are coming from, not around the entire thing. It's a little wasteful to do all this. But I'm just doing this for the example video. Now, this atlas is cracked. This atlas is going to destroy anything that comes up to it. And if you really want to do this, you can. The husks aren't really going to attack the walls, but you can upgrade it if you want. And yeah. Also, a good spot for your defenders, if you plan to use them. Let me make a defender pad real quick. A good spot for your defender would be right dead in the center. You place that down, you get a sniper defender, you give it an obliterator, and it just deals with everything. Everything that comes up. If they make it to the traps, this thing is going to try to finish them off as best as they can. That is a cracked out, perfect for 160s Atlas build right here. This thing will prevail and destroy in 160s. Also, your teammates will love you because this thing is ridiculously overkill and it does so much damage. You probably don't even need all these traps, but for a 160, you definitely don't need all these tar pits, but that's just for the example in the video. You only really want tar pits on the direction that the husks are coming from. But yeah, here is a cracked out 160 Atlas build with all the traps I just showed you before. All right, we're going to go over a very simple, very common, very easy to understand RTD, retrieve the data build. So right off the bat, we got our data in there. Pretend like there's data in there. So right off the bat, you place stairs like this or edited roofs. It's either or. And then all the way around. And then now you want to place walls like this on each corner where there's an open tile right here. And then now with all that, you want to go here and you want to make arches. And then you go up and then you fill in the roof right here. Don't fill in the center tile because when the balloon lands, it will break it. And then now we're going to place our anti-airs. Very simple. Place them on each corner. Very easy to understand. And then now we're going to go back down here and then we're going to upgrade everything. Make sure everything is ready to go. All right, everything is upgraded. So now we're going to get our wall darts and we're going to put them on the walls right here. They will go through the stairs. I mentioned it in the wall darts part. Put them on each corner right there. And then you take the rest of your wall darts, boom, boom, on the corners right here, boom, 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 and then boom, boom. There we go. Really crazy as it is. But now you take your tar pits and you fill up the entire center right here with tar pits. Now you take some ceiling electric fields and you put them like this, like this, like this, like this. And then now this next part is a choice on your end. So you can either do ceiling electric fields right here, or you could do drop traps. It's preference. You could do drop traps to keep them from coming in close, but it's preference. I do either or. I mostly do drop traps, but we also can do ceiling electric fields. They do a lot of damage. Now, a very helpful thing that your teammates will love you for is if you make healing pads that I mentioned earlier in the floor trap section. You make healing pads and you place them on the stairs right here. So whenever your teammate's low on health, they're dying, you can't adrenaline rush them, they can't heal themselves, they run up to the fence, they walk over this, and they're back to full health and they're back in the fight. Your teammates will love you if you do this, trust me. It's really nice. Now, another thing you can do, I mentioned it earlier with the wall spikes. You can take your wall spikes of preference, either increase building health or heals attached. It's preference. I'm going to take 4 of the heals attached, and you can actually place them inside here after the defense starts. So once the balloon falls down, you can do this, 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 and your inner walls will get the bonuses of your wall spikes that you chose. In my example, my walls are going to be healed throughout the mission. And that is a pretty simple, cracked out RTD, retrieve the data, build for 160s. This thing is obviously not going to do the whole job. You're going to want tunnels around. You're going to want your teammates really cranking into overdrive. And if you really want some more structural support, you can just attach these right here. Fill in the blanks around here with some structural support. But yeah, you don't really need this unless you're feeling a little nervous and you want to make sure your base doesn't get destroyed, and you don't have faith in your anti-airs. You can do this to really get some extra defense around. All right, it's time for Ride the Lightning. Now we have our Ride the Lightning box right here. So the way you do Ride the Lightning is you have a 2x2 box around your van, so the van's like right there, and there's some equipment right there, and then there's an open spot, and you never want to have this open spot open. You want to have this filled in with a wall, an edited ramp, or a staircase, or something. You never want to have this open in a Ride of Lightning ever. It is really bad. Do not do it. You will lose very quickly if you just have an open wall like this. All right. Right off the bat, so we're going to add some structure. So I'm going to go with the cheapest building material because why not? Doesn't really matter. Husks aren't going to be targeting this. So I'm going to go with the cheapest building material, which is wood. Now I'm going to do whatever you want for this. Husks are really not going to be paying attention to this. So I'm just going to do wood. And I go around like this. So with Ride the Lightning, lobbers tend to be a problem with this mission. They tend to spawn a lot more frequently. So we can do the normal 4 on each corner, but I recommend placing like maybe 1 or 2 extra ones or 4 extra ones like I'm doing here, because they spawn a lot in Ride the Lightning. So you really should maybe put some extra anti-airs down. Now, back down to the lower level, we're going to go over here and we're going to place a strong wall. So I'm going to place these 2 right here. And we have strong walls on every corner now, surrounding the objective. And here's the fun part. If you like tar pits, get ready for a lot of them. So tar pits are essential in Ride the Lightning because of how many smashers spawn. Smashers spawn a lot in Ride the Lightning. They are very annoying with how often they spawn. So you want to have this area right close to the objective wall covered in tar pits. You want to have this as safe as possible because the smashers are relentless in Ride the Lightning. And as I'm upgrading these walls right here, you'll probably notice some design similarities between this and the Retrieve the Data. They're kind of the same. So I'm going to place my wall darts right here on each corner. So if anything walks in, they'll get hit really hard. All right, now that all that is down, we're going to take more wall darts. Let me make a little more for this example. We're going to take our wall darts and place them all around the inside like this. Now, if you remember what I said about ceiling electric fields, they have that 3-tile radius around them. So you're going to want to put them on the corners right here. So if you put them on the corners, Husk walking right here will get hit. Any Husk that manages to get here will hit. And any Husk right here will get hit. So if you have them on each 4 corner, you'll have each little corner of the base protected with the ceiling electric field. Now on this one right here, you want drop traps facing outward. Like I said earlier with the drop trap guide, you want them facing outward with the tank. So when the Husks get hit by it, they bounce backwards. Now you're going to do that on every corner. And another thing you can do in Ride the Lightning, since the objective is already down, is you can go in here and place your wall spikes for extra building health or extra healing. And that's really kind of it with Ride the Lightning. Obviously, you're going to want tunnels, but this is a good core defense to have if you are doing this solo or your teammates aren't really well equipped. But this is really good. This is a really, really good setup to have. And you can make it even better by putting like floor freezes out here, but that's not necessary. This is kind of the essential build with Ride the Lightning, and Husk will not make it far unless they're smashers. Unfortunately, smashers are just a nuisance in everything. But yeah, that's pretty much it for Ride the Lightning. You might need some defenders down around up here, maybe around over here with some snipers, or just more anti-airs, because lobbers are so effing annoying in Ride the Lightning. You will learn that soon enough if you haven't already. Alright, so this next little mini section is going to be special traps, so boost pads, defender posts, jump pads, and, you know. So, right off the bat, the most like brain dead one I'm going to get out the way is hoverboard boost pads. I don't think anyone is going to really use these other for joking around and sending yourself flying off the map. All they do is give you a hoverboard boost. That's it. They don't do anything special. Now, they are fun to mess with if you want to launch yourself off the map. Like, if you go on them and you jump at the same time, you can send yourself rocketing off the map. They're very dumb. It's a very fun trap, but it has no real practical use outside of being a really dumb fun trap or getting around your endurance for idea. But you know, you're probably gonna have an AFK spot anyways. It's really easy to get to for endurances. All right, the next trap I'm gonna go over is the jump pad. So we have the directional jump pad and we have the up jump pad. So the up jump pad, all it does, it sends you up. It has one special effect where it can actually disable the AFK timer. So if you just are bouncing on this, you will not get AFK kicked at all. The game will not AFK kick you. It's pretty funny. And this one has a very special quirk where you can chain react them. Now, if you've played OG BR, the new OG mode in BR, you might have seen this. You might have seen people talking about this. But if you chain these things, so for example, I'm going to place them pretty sparsed out because I want to really show how ridiculous these things are. So I'm going to place them like this. And what you can do with these, let me actually put a wall right here because I really don't want to have to climb all the way back up. What you can do with these things is chain bounce them. So you run over here and you bounce on one, you bounce on two, and it will send you rocketing across the map. You can gain infinite momentum by stacking these things. It's really fun and it's a really fast way to get around the map if you want to craft a bunch of them, just have them in your inventory, place them around. But yeah, directional jump pads are really, really fun for getting around the map, but they have no like damage or anything other than that. All right, so the next trap I'm going to go over is defender pads. Now, defender pads are a little weird. I'm going to explain how defender pads work because a lot of people don't truly understand how it works sometimes. So if you're in a 4-player mission, you yourself have a maximum of 3 defenders to put down because it considers you as 1 player and your 3 defenders as 3 other players. So if you've noticed in non-4-player missions, if you are a full party and there's 4 people in there, you can't put any defenders down at all. It's because the game has 4 players in it. But since a 4-player mission is 4 player. It allows you to put 3 defenders down like you're putting 4 other players down. So the dumbest way to understand that is 4 player missions, you can have 3 defenders down. Non 4 player missions, so normal missions, you cannot have any defenders down if the party is full. You can have a defender down for each empty slot there is in the party. So if there's 3 people in the match, you can have 1 defender down, but if another person joins, your defender is going to get taken away. So the way defenders work, you get them. You've seen defenders before. You probably got a bunch of them, but the only ones that really matter are sniper defenders with obliterators, because the sniper defenders with obliterators can see through walls, and if you give a sniper defender an obliterator, it can be used to put on the top of a roof of a defense or somewhere high up, and they can see through walls and they will shoot the enemies and keep them away from your base or do little damage to finish them off before they touch your walls. Sniper defenders are goated. They are the best defenders in the entire game because you can get them obliterators, and they basically just wall hack for you. They wall hack for you. But yeah, sniper defenders, that's them. Also, if you drop ammo in front of a defender, it will pick it up. You can also drop it a new weapon if one breaks, and it will pick it up instead of having to go into the menu and give it a new one. So that is every trap in the entire game. How to use them, basic examples on how to use them. If I messed up anything, if you have more advice, leave it in the comments. Thank you, everyone who uses my code. You are very appreciated. I could not do half the things I do in life if people were not using my code. So I very much appreciate everyone who uses my code. I wish I could put it all on screen, but there's so much of it, and I'd have to compile months of code usages because it's been so long since I've done a video on Fortnite. But yeah, thank you, everyone who uses my code, and thank you for watching.